Hello there and welcome to another Speedy Clark production. Okay, so what I want to talk about this evening, as you will see, we are back in the room. This is not actually my bedroom, as some people have actually commented on. This is my office and it happens to have a spare bed in it for a guest room, but this is ultimately my office. So what I want to talk about tonight is basically a bit about myself, but mostly commenting on heart conditions. So obviously my channel is relating to time management, motivation, cycling, training, how I juggle everything that I do, which is the cycling adventure, with having a family and working full time. But something that was commented on the other day, sorry, I'm just trying to think of the best way to discuss it, is one of my colleagues actually commented to me the other day that they're like, how come you never discuss your heart condition? So basically what I want to say is I have a heart condition called Wolff Parkinson White Syndrome, which I was diagnosed with mid to end 2005, end of August 2005 actually, after one of my most successful time trial cycling racing seasons. Basically I was at work, working for a seafood company at the time, just a standard mediocre job. I was a hygiene operator, a cleaner, deep cleaner, cleaning machinery that cuts smoked salmon, and basically had a very violent heart palpitation which increased my heart rate exceptionally high. Felt quite dizzy, lightheaded. I blacked out briefly just for a split second, and when I came to, called an ambulance. I went to hospital and I was diagnosed with Wolff Parkinson White Syndrome. So basically I was working to fund my racing. I was quite happy doing the job I was doing, quite a mediocre job, just being able to go in, do the job to my best of ability, not having a great deal of responsibility. But basically I used that job funding my bike racing and my cycling at the time, which I did basically from 1999 up until 2005. The diagnosis of the heart condition, which is Wolff Parkinson White Syndrome, came as a shock, a very big shock to myself, because I was very fit, very healthy. I was competing at quite a high level, and in 2005 I'd actually won a couple of open time trial events in Britain. I'd won a 50-mile time trial. I'd got a few medals. I was sorry, I'm just leaning on the table there and it's moving the camera, I've noticed. So I was doing quite well, and I was getting coached at the time by an exceptionally well-known cyclist who'd been a professional previously, and he'd saw a great deal of potential within myself. We hadn't got to that potential yet, however 2005 gave us a good indication where I can potentially get to. Unfortunately, after the diagnosis of Wolff Parkinson White Syndrome in mid to late August 2005, which was diagnosed through the ECG, so because my heart rate had went up so high, I was given an ECG. I had bloods etc. taken, and the ECG showed an extra spike. So Wolff Parkinson White Syndrome is basically an electrical issue. I basically have an extra electrical pathway within my heart. So think of it like almost like a dodgy set of earphones. So you've got your headphones in, they're working perfect, and you may have a loose wire because of how you folded them up and connected. And sometimes you lose the hearing on one side and it will come back again. So it's almost like that. It's almost like dodgy wiring in the heart, but it's actually an extra piece in the heart. So basically this can increase the heart, and in my case my heart rate went up way above 260. In some rare cases it can result in sudden death. So sudden death syndrome, Wolff Parkinson White, they do go hand in hand. I'm presuming you'll have heard of some athletes where they'll have mysteriously died in their sleep, and it actually could be a result of that. So this might sound quite dramatic, and it's usually the first impression that people take from that. Oh my God, sudden death, it's not as bad as that, and I don't mean it to sound exaggerated at all. It's a maybe. I don't like doing that, but it's a maybe. So you have to be advised that this is a potential. However, I am 39 years old now. I will be 40 soon. It's 2018. I was diagnosed in August 2005, and I have been in hospital a total of 3 times, I think, with issues post-diagnosis. However, I'm fine and I'm okay. So long story short, the diagnosis came as quite a shock. I was told to take it easy. I was told to stop competing, or recommended rather to stop competing at the level I was at. Because I felt okay, apart from that one episode, I decided to keep doing what I was doing. However, from a safety point of view, from British Cycling, etc., I did have to tell the people I was riding for at the time about the issue. So they had to check out, and basically I had to stop racing because of legalities, licensing, etc. at the time, because it was a bit of an unknown. So I found this quite depressing, if I'm being brutally honest, because I thought it should be up to me whether I race or not. I can understand now, looking back, the decisions and the reasons why things happened the way they did, but at the time I was very frustrated. So as a result of that frustration, I stopped racing and competing. I sold all of my cycling equipment, bought a kayak and did a little bit of kayaking. I started to put on a little bit of weight. Now, I've never been that heavy anyway, but when you're racing and training all the time, you are exceptionally lean. Your body is like completely stripped down, and you're used to being like that. So even to put on 5 or 6 kilos, which is well within the tolerance of my height, it feels odd and uncomfortable, especially when you're used to doing things a certain way for so many years. So after about a year of not cycling at all and only doing walking and some kayaking, I was like, sod this, I need to start riding my bike again. This is just unbelievable. So I decided just to start riding the bike. I got a cheap bike, second hand. It actually turned out to be a bit of a classic. It was a Raleigh 531. Steel tubing, and I got my I upgraded the group set on it. So again, long story short, started training again, initially just for weight loss, going out with my mates who were into odd axes. So they weren't racing, but they were doing real long distance odd axes. Odd axe is basically like a group event that's not classed as a race, and you basically cover anything from 50 to 150 miles, sometimes over 12 hours. But it's not classed as a race. You go around and you record landmarks, etc. So I went round with my mates who like these events, and I used that to keep fit. I never really had any major problems after my initial diagnosis on that one occasion. So I decided I wanted to start racing again. So a friend of mine, as I said, who does the odd axing, was interested in time trials and was doing okay at local time trials with a local club in the area which I lived at the time. So basically, you're not allowed to draft or slipstream in a time trial, so I wouldn't be allowed to sit in front of him, etc. So I was going out in this heavy steel bike, sitting in behind him when he did his time trial at the local club, and keeping up without an issue, and I was feeling okay. I would cycle out to the time trial, do the time trial with him, but not a recorded time trial. It'd be classed as a ride with my mate. Get the time, which again wouldn't be recorded. My mate would get his time, however. And it went on from there. So I decided that I wanted to start racing again. It was like, how can we do this? So long story short, once again, because there is a lot going on here, I managed to convince the relevant people at the time that it was safe for me to race. However, I did have to sign a declaration, and I think it was the British Cycling Federation. I've got the letter somewhere, but I was basically provided with a letter to say I can race. It's on my own head. It was signed. It had their stamp and logo on it. So it's somewhere in my house. I don't know exactly where. So basically I started racing again, but despite me getting a reasonable level of fitness, that year out did a phenomenal amount of damage to my form and condition. It was just, I really struggled to get back to the level I was at. And I'd got rid of all my equipment. I'd sold all my equipment. Some of it had been sponsored equipment, very good discounted equipment. It was a few £1,000s worth of equipment that was sold. So I didn't really have the technology to start racing again to get those marginal gains. So I didn't have a time trial bike. I didn't have the aero wheels. I was using my standard road bike with clip-on tri-bars to get me into an aerodynamic position. So I just had to make do with what I had. So basically, to raise awareness for Wolff Parkinson White Syndrome and to help support people and to show that despite having a diagnosis of a heart problem, your life isn't over. You can still do things, you can still achieve things. I decided to train to ride from Land's End to John O'Groats in the fastest riding time possible for the British Heart Foundation. So in 2009, I cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats in a riding time of 55 hours. Terry Dolan, who builds very nice good bikes and carbon bikes, etc., kindly helped, supported and funded some of the event with me by helping out through providing me with a nice carbon time trial bike, the Dolan Strike at the time back in 2009. So I got that at a really good discount, etc. So I really appreciate that from him because he opened up the pathways for me to get back into competing again. So on the back of my 2009 effort from riding John O'Groats to Land's End in a riding time of 55 hours, I started getting my condition back. I kept progressing that, doing some intervals, all still having this heart condition. So if we jump back a little bit, I had to go for what they call an ablation procedure, where they tried to remove this extra electrical pathway which is causing the problems. However, when I went for the operation, which was in Glasgow Royal Infirmary, I think, they discovered that the position of this electrical point, so it can be different. Wolff Parkinson White is different. Although you have the diagnosis, it's different for each individual. Some cases are more severe than others. Quite often kids are born with Wolff Parkinson White, and they actually grow out of it. The pathway disrupts itself or disappears. I'm the opposite way around. I've always been fine and it didn't manifest, or I didn't have any symptoms until 2005 when I was 27 years old. So basically they tried to get rid of this electrical pathway, and they discovered that this removing the pathway was very close to what they call the AV node within my heart, which controls everything basically. I think, don't quote me on it, I'm not a medical expert, but I believe that was the case, and it may have resulted in cardiac arrest. So you're conscious when all this is going on, so I decided not to pursue. Alright, off my own back, because I kind of felt okay the majority of the time, I would say 85-90% of the time, I decided not to pursue with this procedure, because it actually may have caused more harm than good. And after doing some research, the ablation procedure wasn't always 100% effective. So I didn't see the point in going through. Just for me personally, I'm not saying don't get it done, because there's people out there that have had the ablation procedure, been absolutely fine. I don't know their full medical history or background, but I read upon people being fine. But certainly for me, we decided not to go for it, or I predominantly decided, along with my family, a few discussions and some reasoning, not to go for this procedure. I did have the odd blip in palpitation. So basically when a palpitation comes on, it happens exceptionally fast, within seconds, far quicker than you can describe. And basically the way I feel when that happens is I start getting tingling in my fingers, I get cold fingers. It's almost like I can feel the blood flow moving from my extremities right up into my heart, into the chest. I feel lightheaded, feel dizzy. I've only ever passed out and blacked out once, which was in my diagnosis in 2005. And basically I can get a little bit of a cold sweat on. So ultimately it feels like I've done an exceptionally intense workout within seconds. I mean, 1 and 2 and 3, that can be over. However, it leaves me feeling very tired, a bit lethargic, and for some bizarre reason craving sugar as well. It's like I've used so much energy. It's almost like I've done a 3-hour training session on the bike within a few seconds. That's how it makes me feel. Now it is very hit and miss, because from 2006 to 2009, 2010, I did seem to go through a series of episodes of I'd have an episode once a month, and then a couple of times. However, I had a lot of other things going on in the background which could have contributed towards that. So basically nothing causes this. There's no exterior factors. So drinking coffee, caffeine, despite what you may read, because I love my coffee, I love caffeine, it's never caused me any problems. It's never interfered with it at all. However, I don't really drink alcohol. I'm not a drinker. Alcohol apparently can cause it, because I think it's something to do with thinning the blood out, etc. Don't quote me on that. And being exceptionally tired, so if you've run yourself into the ground, which you can do through training, I seem to be more prone to having palpitations. So it's not something I really openly talk about, because it doesn't really place that many restrictions on my lifestyle. It's not really that restrictive. It's a very strange thing, and the reason why I'm pausing is because it's difficult to talk about, because I have this heart problem, this heart issue. Worst case scenario, sudden death, yeah, but the likelihood, you can't say. People just have to add that in there as a just in case. However, it may never happen, you know, and I'd like to think that that wouldn't happen. And I don't want people to go, oh my God, it's a reality of the condition. It may or may not happen. You know, as I say, 2005 diagnosis, it's now 2018. I'm all right, I'm okay. So as you'll know through my posts, I've been training, I've been racing, I've attempted a couple of Guinness World Records, one of them successful, one of them in 2013 unsuccessful. Again, I won't go into the history of that. You'll see from my films the aftermath of that and what happened there. The only problem is it can be a bit detrimental. So through doing all this, you know, I have this going on in the background, and I suppose it's always in the back of my mind as well. But if I'm being brutally honest, my family worry about it more than what I do. I tend to forget about it. And sometimes I even forget that I've got an issue. I don't dwell on it. So my point of this film is, obviously you need to be careful and you need to look after yourself, but you should not let anything stop you from what you want to do. Now, the thing with having a condition of any kind, whether it's Wolff Parkinson White Syndrome, whether it's cancer, whether it's, you know, some kind of other disability, this is hard to describe. So, if I hadn't been diagnosed with Wolff Parkinson White Syndrome, I wouldn't be the person that I am now. Meaning, up until the point of 2005, I was quite happy to have a mediocre job, just ticking over, because my ultimate goal was cycling, training, racing. Now, when I was told I couldn't do the cycle, training, racing, I was like, what am I going to do? I was a bit lost, if I'm being brutally honest. It's like, what am I going to do? I'm very motivated. You know, the training requires a lot of dedication. It requires a lot of mental toughness. It requires a lot of discipline. It requires a lot of pain, if I'm being brutally honest. So it's like, where am I going to channel all this? I mean, I actually understand now why when people come out the military, for example, or they're being used to a regimented process all the time, how they struggle to fit into normal society, because suddenly you're completely changing what you're doing. And it's very, very difficult, very difficult. So it's like, what am I going to do? So the energy, the enthusiasm that I had for training, I suddenly decided to divert all of that and the mental toughness into my career, which was working in the food industry at the time. It still is now, actually. So basically, I decided to go for supervisory positions. I did on-the-job training, training at work, dedication. You know, you've got to be very regimented in training to do well on the bike, and you also have to be very regimented to do well in your job or training, get the qualifications. So I basically worked my way up the ladder, supervisory management positions. I then took a sidestep into human resources because I like dealing with people. And then it went from there and just snowballed completely. And from like 2005 up until 2009, I progressed at a phenomenal rate through businesses from having no previous experience of doing that or no previous management experience. But you know what? It's really not rocket science. It was the method I used for training, racing and cycling that got me to progress through my career and to progress through other things and take other things more seriously. You know, so you don't have to be an expert and you don't have to let things overwhelm yourself. If you have the mental toughness, if you have the willingness, if you have the ambition and the drive, you can pretty much achieve anything that you really, really want deep down to achieve. So the funny flip side of the coin is that I would say having Wolff Parkinson White Syndrome made me better at my job. It gave me better career opportunities. And then on the further flip side, it brought me back into cycling again. So I'm like, yeah, I'm cycling, I'm racing. Who is anyone to tell me that I cannot race and train on my bike? I decide what I want to do, nobody else. So I had this very stubborn attitude and mental toughness that said, fuck it, I am doing this. I am doing it. I'm making it work. I am going to be the first person with a heart condition that does X, Y, and Z. And that was the way I took it. And to be brutally honest, if I hadn't been diagnosed with my heart condition, that I probably would not have had the drive to do those things. So I'm like, yeah, I'm cycling the full length of Britain. Actually, I want to cycle the full length of Britain faster than anyone else has done on charity. It's not the fastest time ever, but it's the fastest from what I believe recorded charity time for a single person solo. Gethin Butler is the one-way record holder in 44 hours 19 minutes, but that's like the official cycling record, not a charity event. So, you know, that's pretty amazing. So really there's not a massive amount of difference considering A, I'm not a full-time cyclist, and B, heart condition. So I was very happy with that. So progressed on with that. The last company that I worked for, I left them and decided to seek other opportunities, which I did, and completely moved again and went into another business and again used the same attitude and mentality, but this time still training and racing consistently. I then met my wife, I have my daughter, so I'm now doing all these things, and I still have a heart condition, yeah? So basically the reason why I'm talking about this is because I want to help people yet again, and I want people to understand that you do not need to let a disability or a hindrance stop you from doing what you want to do. I used mine to make myself stronger, and it did. It made me very strong. Yeah. So 2017, last year, as you'll know, myself and 3 other individuals, we set a non-aerodynamic relay record from John O'Groats to Land's End and a riding time of 52 hours, 12 minutes, with an average speed at the headwind for the whole distance of about 28 miles an hour. So we're going to go again this year, 2018, 27th of April. Look for us, give us a shout out to absolutely smash it and put an on the shelf time, because we were hindered with the headwind before and we were quite rigid with the direction we were doing it in. So, you know, look after yourself, crack on, but do not let an illness, a condition, ruin your life. Turn it into a positive, not a negative. All right? So I've got a lot to thank cycling for, actually, and also the motivation that having actually this heart condition gave me. Now, I'm going to mention an individual that may be a bit controversial here. So Lance Armstrong, 7-time Tour de France winner. I don't really want to go into discussion about doping, etc., because it was a dark era in cycling. Every single person in the top 20 was all doping, so in my opinion it was a level playing field. That's not what this film's about. But the drive Lance Armstrong had after coming back after cancer, the mentality, the motivation, the winning, you know, take the scandal piece out of it, he did an immense job of coming back after being on death's door and doing exceptionally well, raising funds. You know, a lot of people don't realise the good work that he did, or certainly have forgotten about the good work he did, and they're just focusing on the negative, you know. But again, everyone was doing it, doesn't make it right, but it was a dark era in sport. He was, on paper, still the best athlete out of everyone, you know. So whether he was on hot sauce or not, everyone was on hot sauce. They were all on the same stuff. So he was still the best rider. So if you took all that away from everyone, you probably still would be the best rider, all right? So that's that topic finished. What I wanted to reiterate was how things are possible and achievable, you know? Okay, so I will put some links in the description if you want to know more about Wolff Parkinson White. I'll put some YouTube links in there for medical research, etc., and you can check those out and see what it's like. As I say, I wasn't wanting to discuss this, but the only reason why I am is because I was asked about it. So I thought it might be a good idea to actually have a discussion on this, and also for people to realise, you know, I'm not sitting, yeah, I can do this, I've got so much energy, blah, blah, blah. It's not that easy, you know. I don't know if I make it look easy or not, but it's really not that easy. But I do this because I take each day as it comes, right? So, and this might sound dramatic, but it is a reality of it. I try and do as much as I humanly can, as much as humanly possible, within a day, within a week, within a month. I do plan ahead, you know, as you'll see from some of my previous videos and some that are coming up again. You know, 2019 is already taken care of, and we're only in 2018. There's a lot of good stuff coming. I also have a rule. I never like to go to sleep at night on a debate. So everyone has a debate, whether it's with a friend, family member, work colleague. It's a natural process, but I never like to leave the day or the evening finished on a debate where there hasn't been a mutual, amicable discussion. You know, if it's your wife or partner or whatever, a kiss, cuddle, love you, whatever, you know. I do not like to go to sleep without that being done and closed off. So, you know, take each day as it comes. Keep yourself motivated. Focus on the positives. Please like, share and subscribe. I hope this film was useful for yourselves. It was actually quite useful for me to talk about it, because I haven't really spoken about this for a very long time. I certainly don't look at it as an issue, but I want to use this to help you guys and to make people realize that if you really want to achieve something, you can. Now, I don't mean sitting there at night in bed dreaming, I want to win the lottery, I need £100,000 or whatever. It has to be realistic. Alright? Realistically, what do you want to do? I want to fly to the moon. Is that going to happen? Maybe not. But I would like to be a manager, or I would like to run that marathon, or I would like to be able to walk to the shops. You know, if your mobility is really, you know, limited. Small goals, you know, small gains. Ultimately, do what you want to do. If you want to write a book, write a book. You know, if you want to do some films on YouTube, do some films on YouTube. If you want to decide to be a manager, a counsellor, a psychologist, whatever you want to do, have a go at it. Try it. And through trying something that you initially think you might want to do, you may discover a different path and decide to go do something else. So give it a go. But as I say, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Normal service for the films will be resumed, so take care and thank you.